Big 12 college football. What will the new Big 12 look like? Will the Big 12 continue to expand after its two biggest bell cows leave to the SEC? Honestly, we all know that the financial future of this conference has been secured by Brett Moriarty. So it's going to be a really good season. I've got things in order, all the teams in order alphabetically. Going to make Big 12 college football predictions. Going to talk about offenses, defenses, and of course, what I think this conference championship will look like and how I think each team will end up doing. I'm going to start with the Baylor Bears. The Baylor Bears. You know, I think they're going to have a tough early game against Utah. And then, of course, of the newcomers, you get three of them, and you have to go on the road to two of them, Cincinnati and Central Florida. So that could be tough, but you've got Blake Shapen back at quarterback, and, of course, a Dave Aranda defense, and a team that got 3 interceptions last season in Norman, a team that just had one of the better defenses in the nation. They ended up +2 in the turnover margin, and a team that ended up losing their last 4 games. So it was one of those, what happened? And can Jeff Grimes and Dave Aranda get this team turned around? I think they're going to be pretty good. I think Shapen takes a little bit of a jump, and of course it's still a Dave Aranda defense. I've got them in 4, beating Texas State, losing to Utah, beating Long Island, losing to Texas, beating Central Florida, beating Texas Tech, beating Cincinnati, losing to Iowa State, beating Houston, beating Kansas State, losing at TCU, and beating West Virginia. And that's how they get to 8-4. Now, BYU, a team that is new to the Big 12. Look, Jay Hill, defensive coordinator, is going to have a lot on his shoulders trying to make this a Power 5 defense, as they were 96th in overall defense and allowed 29 points per game. If you struggle on defense, really your entire team struggles. Now they're going to have one of the fastest receivers in the Big 12 in Cody Epps this year, but he's probably going to be their biggest star, as really BYU's, they have 6 players that started intermittently last year. They really don't have a ton of experience on defense. For that reason, I have them 14-7. I have them beating Sam Houston and Southern Utah. Easy start there. Losing to Arkansas and Kansas, and then beating Cincinnati, losing to TCU, losing to Texas Tech, losing to Texas, beating West Virginia, losing to Iowa State, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State to finish the year. Now, Cincinnati. Now, look, with Cincinnati, their new coach, Scott Sturfield, comes in as a new coach to Cincinnati and the Big 12. He is ranked at the bottom of the Big 12 in coaches, or head coaches, in most categories, including experience against Power 5 opponents. So it's already going to be a tough schedule. And they, right now, would have the worst offense in the Power 5, as they only have 1 starter returning, and they were 58th in offensive production last season. So they had a good defense. Cincinnati has had a really good defense for the past couple of years, but like I say, it's really all on Satterfield how good they'll be in year 1. And if you if you can't score, you can't win, as the old adage is. I have them 4-8 and 2-7. I have them beating Eastern Kentucky, Miami of Ohio, West Virginia, and Kansas, and losing games to Pittsburgh, Oklahoma, BYU, Iowa State, Baylor, Oklahoma State, Central Florida, and Houston. Then, speaking of the Cougars are going to be one of the teams that I think under Dana Holgorsen are going to be a team that have a real chance. Dana Holgorsen averages 7.5 wins per year in the Big 12. He used to be at West Virginia, so this will be kind of a homecoming to him. How will Donovan Smith be able to take over an air raid that was 8th last year in pass yards per game? So it's really all about the offense, and they're going to try to rotate wide receivers, but with depth being a huge concern, 4 starters back on offense and 3 on defense, and a team that really tried to portal to get onto that Big 12 level. The real question is, did they? I'm going to say that they're somewhere in the middle. I have them 7-5 and 4-5, and they get the right guys in, and if Doug Belk's defense ends up doing really well, I think they could be even better. But I have them beating UTSA and Rice, losing to TCU, beating Sam Houston, losing at Tech, beating West Virginia, losing to Texas, losing to Kansas State, losing to Baylor, beating Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, and Central Florida to end the year. Iowa State, Matt Campbell, and the best tight ends of the Big 12. Big Deshaun Hinka, 6'6", 238 is going to be an amazing target. By the way, also seniors and juniors starting this offense, the most experienced offense in the Big 12. Oh, and the defense, that was number 4 in the nation in total defense, and one of the best defenses in the nation in the Big 12. They're also going to put Jarrell Brock back. They're going to use him in a lot of special team situations as well as running back, which could lead them to having really good special teams. The problem is Jace Gilbert only made 12 of 20 field goal attempts last year, so they could not finish off drives. But can they end up finishing drives this year? That'll be really a difference between a 7-win team, a 6-win team, and a 9-win team. I have them 7-5 and 4-5. I have them beating Northern Illinois, Iowa, Ohio, and Oklahoma State before losing to Oklahoma and TCU, beating Cincinnati and Baylor, losing to Kansas, beating BYU, losing to Texas, and Kansas State. They have one of the hardest schedules in the Big 12. They have to play both teams that are departing and both teams that played for the conference title last year. So they play OU, Texas, and TCU and Kansas State. Oh, and not to mention one of the best defenses in the conference. They go on the road to Baylor. So they probably have the hardest schedule in the Big 12. Kansas. Look, Kansas is going to be back from since 2008. I don't know how you want to say. But they have Jalon Daniels, whose brother is at LSU right now and is a starting quarterback. He is ranked 10th in quarterbacks in the nation right now. And, of course, they have their entire starting linebackers and secondary back on defense. So the Jayhawks are right there, but it was a defense that allowed 35.5 points per game and was one of the worst and is projected to be improved to the point where they're 8th or 9th in the Big 12, and with Daniels and 9 starters back on offense, this offense is going to move the ball up and down the field, and with a decent schedule, if they go 3-0 in the non-con, all of a sudden you'll see an 8-4, 5-4 team. This may be a high-end projection, but I have them going 3-0 or 4-0 to start the year, then losing to Texas and Central Florida before winning on the road against Oklahoma State, losing to Oklahoma, beating Iowa State and Texas Tech and Kansas State before dropping a game to Cincinnati to close the season. And that's 8-4 and 5-4. 8-4 and 5-4 in conference play. Now, Kansas State, Chris Klieman is their current Big 12 champs, by the way, and Chris Klieman has been dubbed best coach in college football. And of course, Colin Klein is one of the best coordinators in college football. A Kansas State man himself, doesn't want to leave, and yet would be a high dollar head coach somewhere. Really amazing dude. Their biggest question is, how do you replace a guy like Deuce Vaughn? Well, it's easy. You replace him with multiple players. It's that Billy Bean Oakland A's thing. Will Howard's going to run the ball more. Chris Moore and DJ Kiddens and Joe Jackson going to get more carries. Going to put 3 guys in the backfield. Where's the ball going to go? Running a lot of counters, things like that. And I think as a team that they're going to rush around 200 yards per game, which would be 15th in the nation. And their defense, 28th in the nation. So that would top 25 offense, top 25 defense. They're going to be pretty good. They're going to probably be top 30 in both of those categories at least this year. I've been on 9-3 and 7-2. I have them losing to Missouri. Just a tough non-con game. You know, the talent level is similar. Missouri's just a little bit ahead of them when you look at it. And then at Kansas, I think it's a tough game. I think it's one of those years where KU, has a chance to beat their rival. Kind of got to take advantage of that because you don't always have the talent to match up, it seems like. And then I think Baylor is just one of those tough games where Dave Aranda can win some games, because sometimes the Big 12's like that, It's just, these really good teams, you don't win every game because you get to those grind-out games, And I really think if they find a way to beat Baylor, they get to the conference championship for sure, and they may even go back-to-back conference champions. It really comes down to that little stretch, Baylor and Kansas. Can you win one of those games? Oklahoma, one of the most talked about teams in college football. Well, the OU Sooners, of course, have been they have the number 2 defensive portal class in the nation. Now, they were 9th out of 10 teams in defense in the Big 12 last year. But Jeff Lebby brings in a new quarterback in Jackson Arnold. And there's a lot of rumors that says he will be starting by week 4 or 5 this season, maybe even after the Texas game, if the offense can't get faster. Now, they have, in my opinion, the easiest schedule in the Big 12. They have an easy non-con, and then your road games are at Kansas, Cincinnati, and Oklahoma State, of course, BYU, and then neutral site game in Dallas. And then at the end of the year, you play a team that went to the national title game on Black Friday, which will be an 11 o'clock kickoff. So an easy schedule because Central Florida, new to the conference, Cincinnati, new to the conference. Historically, OU was 80-27 against Kansas with an 18-game winning streak, and then they're even better on the road against OSU, a team that they're historically 91-19 against, and even better in Stillwater than they are in Norman in that game. And at SG1 Sports, the FPI, 247 Sports, Athlon, and the Vegas odds all have this team second in the conference. It's one of those. We have this 6-7 team, which it happens, from time to time, where a Big 12 team makes a big jump. It happened to Baylor and TCU in recent memory, where they took a huge jump from one year to the next in conference play, and a lot of reason was that the defense improved. So it could happen. I have this team at 10-2 and 7-2 in conference play. I have them beating Arkansas State, SMU, Tulsa, Cincinnati, Iowa State, losing to Texas, beating Central Florida, Kansas, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and BYU, and then losing that last home game of the year to TCU. Now to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was really hit by the portal. Big-time starter Sanders went to be kind of an alternate quarterback or a rotational quarterback at Ole Miss. And Alan Bowman comes in from Texas Tech, a guy who fractured a rib a couple years ago at Tech against Oklahoma. And, Casey Dunn is a really good offensive coordinator, and Mike Gundy has had a winning record for 17 consecutive seasons. But their over-under win total right now is set at 6.5. So the Vegas only expects them to get 6 to 7 wins this season. The FBI has them right now at around 7-5. And when I open up my magazine to Athlon Sports and Oklahoma State, it had them, it had them at 7-5 and 4-5 in conference play. So it really is how good is Gundy, because you only have 4 starters on offense and 2 back on defense. And like I say, a team that was really robbed, lost their last 3 games of the year, ended up slightly underperforming last year. I've got them 7-5 and 4-5 this year. I've got them beating Central Arkansas, Arizona State, South Alabama, losing to Iowa State, Kansas beating West Virginia, Cincinnati losing to Oklahoma, beating Central Florida, losing to Houston, and beating BYU. And that's how I have them 7-5 and 4-5. Now, to the Texas Longhorns. Texas is number 1 in all position categories in the Big 12 right now, across a lot of sources. And of course, they have 2 really good quarterbacks. Quinn Ewers is going to be the starter. And of course, you've got the best wide receiver in the conference as well in Xavier Worthy, and maybe even the best 2 in Xavier Worthy and Jordan Winningham. So, really good pass game. You bring back 4 of 5 offensive linemen. So, you've got a really good offense. Then you have a defense that was 27th in the nation. This year, if they can crack that top 25, you'll have probably a top 25 offense, because they were 24th last year, and a top 25 defense. And that's a playoff team right there. That's what they need to be a playoff team. And I think they get really, really close. But that schedule at Alabama. Now, I know they almost beat Alabama last year in Austin. But it's not in Austin this year. And I don't know. I have them 10-2. And with 1 loss in conference play to Kansas State and 1 loss to Alabama in the non-con. Now TCU. TCU went to the national title last year and got absolutely throttled. They lost that game 7-65, and then they lost their other loss was in the Big 12 championship, 28-31, in the Max Duggan game. I think Chandler Morris will be an excellent replacement for Max Duggan. I don't think he's quite going to be Heisman caliber, but I think he's awesome, and I think TCU has the best head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator combination in the Big 12, maybe even in the nation. I mean, Kendall Briles and Joe Gillespie as OC and DC is huge for them. I love Joe Gillespie. I think he's the best defensive play caller in the nation. And Kendall Briles, son of Art Briles, great offensive play caller, great offensive mind, great at finding matchups. And, of course, this team was 9th in offense last year, where they struggled. They struggled a little bit on defense. They allowed 29 points per game, but, they get transfers from – they get J.P. Richardson, transfer from Oklahoma State. Chandler Morris, who was a former transfer from Oklahoma. And then Jonathan Bax, who, one of those early enrollees. So, a lot of talent, good team. I have them 9-3 and 6-3 in conference play, and I have their losses to Kansas State, Texas Tech, and Texas. Now, Texas Tech, the Red Raiders. Look, a lot of people say Joe McGrew is a great quarterback. He's doing a good job on the recruiting trail recruiting the state of Texas. And they're a team that ended on a 4-game winning streak, including a 42-25 win over Ole Miss. They scored 34 points per game, and of course, Zach Kittley was an amazing offensive coordinator. And he brings air raid to a new level as they throw the ball more than some of the Texas Tech teams in the past have thrown the ball. The question is, will Tyler Slaw be able to put up those numbers? And I don't know. They were 26th in offensive efficiency last year, but -6 in turnover margin. So you throw the ball a lot, you turn over the ball a lot. I have them 8-4 and 5-4 in conference play. I have them beating Wyoming, Oregon. I have them winning all of their non-con games, and then I have them losing to Baylor and Kansas State and Kansas and Texas. Now, Central Florida. Gus Malzahn is a really good coach. They're going to find ways to run the football. They were 9th in rushing offense last season, and R.J. Harvey and John Plumlee, really good running guys. I think you can put Javon Baker and Kobe Hudson back there on the ball, find ways to get them the ball. A lot of guys with a lot of speed, a fun, creative offense, 6 starters back on offense. But their defense was 77th in rushing defense. Got to be able to stop the run in this conference. I have them at 7-5 and 3-6 in conference play. So I have them beating Kent State, Boise State, and Villanova, losing to Kansas State and Baylor, beating Kansas, losing to Oklahoma, beating West Virginia, beating Cincinnati, and then losing their last 3 games. Now West Virginia. I think Neil Brown will get fired this year. I think that it could happen in the middle of the season, and it could be one of those things that causes a little bit of a storm. They have the lowest talent deposit right now in 247, and things just can go off the rails. I have them 2-10, winning 2 of their non-conference game. Obviously, I have that loss to Penn State. So, and then I have them losing their other conference games. Conference championship, the way it would shake out is since OU and Kansas kind of tied in that second spot, it would come down to who was ranked higher. And I think they're going to give the nod to OU to just make the headlines. I think OU ends up losing that game, though, in the Big 12 because Texas is just head and shoulders talent-wise above the rest of the Big 12 right now. So they'll be 11-2 at the end of the year, and OU will be 10-3. Josh George on Football Guy channel.